Take your hand off her. The voice came from the fog behind them, low and steady enough to silence every rogue in the clearing. Emily Carter stopped fighting the rope around her wrists. For one suspended heartbeat, even the wind seemed to hold still among the pines of Blackthorn Forest. Cole Vance turned toward the tree line, his hand frozen inches from Emily's shoulder. A tall man stood between the silver mist and pale light of dawn, dressed in a dark traveling coat. His hair was black, his face calm, and his gray eyes held the authority of a crown. Emily did not know his name, but every instinct inside her recognized danger of a different kind. Controlled, ancient, impossible to ignore. Behind him, shadowed figures waited beneath the trees. No one moved. No one needed to. The stranger's presence had already changed the balance of the entire clearing forever. Cole forced a laugh. This does not concern the crown. The stranger's gaze shifted to the royal seal pinned to Cole's belt, then to Emily's torn cloak, the dirt on her knees, and the small wooden cage 10 feet away. Inside it, Lily Brooks watched through frightened blue eyes silently. Emily had spent the last hour loosening the child's latch with a thin piece of metal hidden in her sleeve. She had almost succeeded before the rogues noticed. Her escape had never mattered as much. If she could create a distraction, Lily could reach the creek and follow it south. Lily, Emily whispered without looking at the cage. When they turn away, run. Cole heard her. His expression tightened and he stepped closer, but Emily lifted her chin. Fear pressed cold against her ribs, yet she refused to let it shape her voice. She is a child. Let her go. The stranger's eyes settled on Emily, and something unreadable crossed his face. Surprise perhaps. Or recognition. It vanished so quickly she wondered whether she had imagined it. Then his attention returned to Cole. Release them both, he said. Return what you stole. And this ends without anyone being harmed today. Cole looked toward the men around him, searching for courage he could borrow. None met his eyes. The forest seemed to lean toward the newcomer. Emily felt a pressure in the air but immense. Her sleeping wolf stirred inside her for the first time in years and breathed one word. King. Cole's confidence faltered. Who are you? He asked. The man took a step into the clearing, and the light caught the silver wolf crest at his collar. Every rogue recognized it. So did Emily. Adrian Blackwood, ruler of the Northern Territories, had come. But why had he come for her? Before anyone answered, Emily saw Lily's fingers curl around the loosened latch. The child was ready. Emily drew a breath, met Adrian's silver-gray eyes, and understood that rescue was not the same as safety. 12 hours earlier, she had belonged to Silver Creek. By sunrise, her pack had sold her. 12 hours earlier, Emily Carter stood alone in the Silver Creek infirmary, counting the last 7 bottles of fever medicine beneath the weak yellow light of an oil lamp. The shelves should have been full. 3 supply wagons had arrived from the royal capital less than a week ago, each carrying enough medicine and dried food to support the pack through winter. Yet the storeroom smelled only of dust, pinewood, and absence. Emily ran her fingers over the empty spaces where sealed crates had rested the night before. Someone had moved them after midnight. Outside, snow brushed softly against the windows, and the pack house had grown quiet. Most wolves were gathered in the dining hall, celebrating Vanessa Reed's engagement to a neighboring beta. Emily had been ordered to remain behind and clean. She was accustomed to being forgotten. Sometimes invisibility felt safer. That night it became dangerous. A child coughed from the nearest cot. 8-year-old Noah Bennett lay beneath 2 wool blankets, his cheeks flushed with fever. Emily crossed the room and placed a cool cloth across his forehead. I will be right back, she promised. The boy opened his eyes. Do not let Alpha Mason see you in the storeroom. Emily gave him a reassuring smile, though unease tightened in her chest. Why would you say that? Noah glanced toward the closed door. I heard him tell Vanessa the wagons leave before dawn. Emily went still. No royal wagons were scheduled to leave. She took the lamp and followed the narrow rear corridor toward the supply yard. The door at the end stood open by an inch, allowing a blade of cold air to slip through. Voices drifted from outside. Emily lowered the flame and looked through the gap. Alpha Mason Reed stood beside 3 covered wagons. Vanessa was with him, wrapped in a white fur cloak, her golden hair bright beneath the moonlight. A stranger held out a leather pouch that gave a heavy metallic sound when Mason accepted it. Cole Vance expects the rest at Blackthorn by sunrise, the stranger said. Medicine, food, and the girl. Emily's breath caught. Mason tucked the pouch beneath his coat. He will have everything. Vanessa smiled. Once Emily is gone, we tell the Crown she stole the supplies and fled to the rogues. No one will question it. For a moment Emily could not move. She had treated Mason's injured hunters without payment. She had stayed awake through entire nights to care for sick children. She had believed service might someday earn her a place among them. Instead, they had already assigned her a price. The floorboard beneath her foot gave a quiet creak. Vanessa turned toward the door. Their eyes met through the narrow opening. Emily saw surprise first, then satisfaction. Vanessa stepped inside and closed the distance slowly. You should have stayed invisible, Emily, she whispered. Behind her, Mason called for the guards. The guards arrived before Emily could reach the infirmary door. They did not explain where they were taking her. They only escorted her through the sleeping pack house and into the assembly hall, where the celebration music had stopped and every face had turned toward the raised platform. Alpha Mason Reed stood beneath the silver crest of Silver Creek, his expression carefully arranged into disappointment. Vanessa waited beside him, still wearing her white fur cloak. Emily understood at once. This was not a hearing. It was a performance, and everyone already knew the ending. Emily Carter, Mason announced, his voice carrying through the hall. You have been found in the restricted supply yard after royal medicine disappeared from our stores. Murmurs moved through the crowd like cold wine through dry leaves. Emily searched the familiar faces before her. Hunters whose wounds she had cleaned. Mothers whose children she had comforted. Elders whose medicine she had measured by hand. Not one of them met her eyes. That is not what happened, Emily said. Her voice trembled once, then steadied. The supplies were loaded onto wagons. I heard you speaking with a man who serves Cole Vance. Mason lowered his head as though her words wounded him. You expect this pack to believe that its alpha betrayed them? I expect them to remember who cared for them when there was nothing to gain. Silence answered her. Vanessa stepped forward holding a small royal seal between two fingers. Emily recognized it as the false emblem she had seen near the wagons. We found this hidden in her cloak, Vanessa said. Proof that she planned to mislead the Crown and join the rogues. Emily stared at her. The seal had never been in her possession, but accusation had already become truth in the minds of frightened people. Mason turned toward the crowd. Silver Creek cannot risk war because of one Omega's choices. Cole Vance has agreed to accept her as payment for the stolen goods and leave our borders untouched. Payment. The word settled heavily inside Emily. They were not banishing her. They were selling her. And Noah? She asked quietly. Mason's gaze sharpened. The boy remains under our protection, provided you cooperate. Emily looked toward the infirmary corridor. Noah was sick, frightened, and entirely dependent on the same people who had emptied the shelves meant to save him. Refusal would not free her. It would only give Mason another victim. She lifted her chin. I will go. A few wolves shifted uncomfortably, but still no one spoke. Vanessa smiled as the guards fastened a plain restraint around Emily's wrists and led her toward the rear gate. Snow had begun to fall harder, covering the road in white. A dark wagon waited beyond the fence. Emily climbed inside without assistance. As the doors closed, she watched Silver Creek disappear through the narrow opening behind her. The bell above the gate rang once, marking her removal from the pack records. She listened for footsteps, for someone calling her name, for any sign that kindness had mattered. No one came after her. The wagon traveled north for nearly 3 hours, its wooden wheels striking every frozen rut in the road. Emily sat with her hands bound before her, listening to the men outside speak in low voices about Blackthorn Forest. They thought she was too frightened to understand them. They were wrong. Fear had sharpened every sound. She counted each turn, measured the hills by the pull of the wagon, and followed the distant rush of water until she knew they had crossed the narrow bridge above Pine Creek. If she escaped, south would lead her home. The thought came bitterly. Silver Creek was no longer home. The wagon finally stopped beneath a canopy of black pines. When the doors opened, cold air rushed inside, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. Cole Vance waited beside a row of abandoned hunting cabins. He was younger than Emily expected, with a polished coat and a smile that never reached his eyes. "So this is Mason Reed's dangerous thief," he said. Emily stepped down without answering. Cole walked around her slowly, examining her as though she were another crate of stolen supplies. "You do not look dangerous." "Neither do lies," Emily replied. His smile faded. 2 rogues escorted her into the largest cabin and tied her wrists to a wooden support post. The room was nearly empty except for a table, several lanterns, and a small cage near the rear wall. Something moved inside it. Emily waited until the door closed before looking closer. A little girl sat behind the wooden slats, wrapped in a blanket far too thin for the cold. She could not have been older than 7. Her pale brown hair was tangled around her face, and her blue eyes watched Emily with silent caution. "What is your name?" Emily asked softly. The child hesitated. "Lily Brooks." "I am Emily." Lily glanced toward the door. "They said the king is coming." Emily felt the false royal seal pressing beneath the lining of her cloak. Someone had placed it there after the hearing, intending for it to be found. Why would the king come here? "They took one of his messengers," Lily whispered. "They want him to think the messenger is still alive." Emily understood then. She was not merely payment. She was part of a trap. Cole wanted Adrian Blackwood drawn deep into rogue territory, and Mason wanted the crown looking anywhere except Silver Creek. Emily shifted her hands and felt the narrow metal pin still hidden inside her sleeve. Vanessa had searched her cloak, but not the braided knot in her hair. Carefully, Emily pulled the pin free and began working it against the rope. "Can you run?" she asked. Lily nodded. "There is a creek south of here. Follow it until you see a stone bridge. Do not leave the water." The rope loosened. Emily crossed the room and reached through the cage slats, turning the simple latch with the pin. It was almost open when footsteps approached. Lily shrank back. The door swung inward, and Vanessa Reed entered wearing her white fur cloak. "How touching," she said. "You are still trying to save people." Emily rose and placed herself between Vanessa and the cage. Vanessa closed the door behind her. "By dawn, the rogues will blame the king for your death, and the crown will blame them. Silver Creek will profit from both sides." Emily stared at her, finally seeing the full shape of the betrayal. Vanessa smiled. "You were never the payment, Emily. You were the spark." Emily kept herself between Vanessa and the cage, though her hands were still bound and the metal pin had fallen near her boot. "A war will expose Silver Creek," she said, buying time. Vanessa gave a quiet laugh. "Not when my father controls the witnesses." She reached for the false royal seal hidden inside Emily's cloak and held it up to the lantern. "The rogues will claim the crown sent you. The crown will find you here and assume Cole kidnapped you. By the time anyone questions the story, both sides will already be fighting." Behind Emily, Lily shifted beneath her blanket. The cage latch was loose. One more pull would open it. Emily lowered her gaze as though defeated. "Then you do not need the child." Vanessa's expression cooled. She saw too much. Emily's fear became something steadier. "So did I." Before Vanessa could respond, voices rose outside. A horn sounded once from somewhere beyond the camp, low enough to make the cabin walls tremble. Cole Vance entered with 2 men behind him, his polished calm replaced by urgency. "The king crossed the eastern ridge," he said. "He is less than a mile away." Vanessa stared at him. "That is impossible. He was supposed to arrive after sunrise." "He changed course during the night." Cole looked at Emily, then at the loosened cage. His eyes narrowed. "Move them to the clearing." Emily stepped back toward Lily, but the men opened the cage and brought the child out. Lily reached for Emily immediately. Emily took her hand and held it firmly as they were led between the cabins. Dawn had not yet broken, but the snow reflected enough gray light to reveal the camp. Rogues moved between the trees, extinguishing lanterns and hiding supply crates beneath canvas. At the center of the clearing stood a tall pine with rope already looped around its trunk. Emily understood what Cole intended. He wanted the king to see a helpless prisoner and walk into the open. "You will stand where he can see you," Cole told her. "You will call for help." "And if I refuse?" Then the child calls instead. Lily's fingers tightened around Emily's. Emily knelt so their eyes were level. Listen to me, she whispered. When everyone looks toward the trees, run south. Find the creek and stay beside it. I do not want to leave you. You are not leaving me. You are carrying the truth. Lily swallowed and nodded. Cole ordered one of his men to take her back to the wooden cage at the edge of the clearing. Emily was secured to the tree, but she kept her attention on Lily and the loosened latch. The forest became strangely quiet. No birds. No wind. Only the faint creak of branches beneath fresh snow. Cole stepped close, trying to hide his unease behind a smile. When he appears, you will look frightened. Emily met his gaze. I do not have to pretend. A shape moved through the mist between the pines. Then another. Dark coats. Silver crests. Men advancing without haste because they did not need to hurry. At their center walked Adrian Blackwood. He entered the clearing with his gray eyes fixed on Emily, and the world seemed to narrow around that single look. Her sleeping wolf stirred, not with fear, but with recognition so powerful it stole her breath. Cole reached toward her shoulder. Adrian stopped. His voice crossed the clearing, calm and absolute. Take your hand off her. Lily's cage clicked open. Emily drew one careful breath. The king had arrived, but now she had to make certain the child escaped. Lily moved first. The cage door opened with a soft wooden click, and the little girl slipped into the fog while every face remained fixed on Adrian Blackwood. Emily did not look toward her. She kept her eyes on Cole Vance, knowing the smallest glance could betray the child's escape. Cole's hand hovered near her shoulder, but he did not touch her. Something in Adrian's expression had warned him not to test the command. You crossed into my territory without permission, Cole said, forcing confidence into his voice. Adrian took one measured step forward. You imprisoned a royal messenger, stole medicine meant for children, and tied an innocent woman to a tree. Permission is no longer the question. The rogues around the clearing shifted uneasily. Adrian's guard spread between the pines, quiet and disciplined, leaving no easy path away. Emily felt the rope tighten as she tested it once more. Cole noticed. He reached for her arm, but Emily drove her heel down onto the edge of his boot and twisted away. It was not enough to free her, but it broke his balance and pulled him clear of the tree. Adrian moved at once. One moment Cole stood beside her, and the next a royal guard had stepped between them, directing him away without striking him. No one shouted. No one needed to. The clearing changed through command rather than chaos. Secure the camp, Adrian ordered. No unnecessary force. Then his attention returned to Emily. Not the stolen crates. Not Vanessa, who was attempting to disappear behind one of the cabins. Emily. Adrian crossed the final distance slowly, as though approaching a frightened animal rather than a prisoner. Her wolf pressed against the silence inside her, alert and confused by the warmth spreading through her chest. Adrian stopped an arm's length away. You are Emily Carter. It was not a question. She swallowed. How do you know my name? His eyes flicked toward the false seal beneath her cloak. I received a message claiming one of my people was being held here. Your name was written beneath the royal mark. Emily understood the final cruelty of Mason's plan. Her identity had been placed at the center of the deception. The message was false, she said. Most of it, Adrian replied. His gaze moved to the rope around her wrists. He lifted one hand, then stopped when she stepped back against the tree. The pause was immediate. No irritation crossed his face. No command followed. May I untie you? He asked. The simple question struck deeper than any promise of rescue. Mason had sentenced her without asking. Cole had moved her like property. Even Vanessa had decided what Emily's life was worth. Yet the most powerful man in the Northern Territories was waiting for her permission. Emily nodded. Yes. Adrian loosened the rope carefully and stepped away as soon as her hands were free. He removed his dark coat and held it out rather than placing it around her. You may take this. Emily accepted it. The wool carried the clean scent of cedar, winter air, and something wild that made her wolf stir again. Lily, Emily said suddenly. The child in the cage. She ran south toward the creek. Adrian turned to Daniel Hayes, the commander beside him. Find her. Bring a healer. Do not frighten her. Daniel left at once. Adrian faced Emily again. Where do you want to go? She stared at him. You are not taking me to the palace? Not unless you choose it. His answer came without hesitation. No one will decide for you again while you stand under my protection. Their fingers brushed as Emily adjusted the coat. Heat flashed through her palm, swift and bright, and Adrian went perfectly still. His silver-gray eyes widened with a truth he did not speak. Emily felt it too. A thread pulling tight between two lives that had never touched before. But Adrian only lowered his hand and gave her space. Whatever he had recognized, he chose not to claim it. Not yet. By mid-morning, Lily had been found beside Pine Creek and wrapped safely in a royal guard's cloak. She refused to release Emily's hand until they were seated together inside a covered carriage bound for the nearest royal outpost. Adrian rode beside them, close enough for Emily to see his dark silhouette whenever the curtains shifted. He had offered her the choice to remain near Blackthorn, return to Silver Creek, or travel under royal protection. Emily had chosen the outpost because Lily needed warmth, food, and a healer. It was the first decision anyone had allowed her to make since the previous night. The road wound through 12 miles of snow-covered forest, narrow and silent beneath the pale winter sky. Lily eventually fell asleep against Emily's shoulder. Emily watched Adrian through the window and tried not to think about the strange warmth that had passed between them when their fingers touched. Her wolf had not settled since. It remained awake inside her, listening for him. The carriage slowed near a steep ridge. Adrian raised one hand, and the entire convoy stopped. The silence changed. Emily could not explain how she knew, but the forest no longer felt empty. A sharp whistle cut through the trees. The horses startled, and the guards moved around the carriage in a protective circle. Adrian opened the door. "Stay inside," he said. Before Emily could answer, another whistle sounded. Adrian turned toward it and stepped between the carriage and the ridge. Something struck the metal guard on his shoulder with a hard ringing sound. He remained standing, but his hand closed around the carriage frame. Daniel Hayes called for the convoy to move. The guards guided the horses forward while Adrian climbed inside and pulled the door shut behind him. His face had lost its color. Emily saw a thin silver dart caught in the edge of his shoulder guard. "It did not reach me," he said, but his voice was strained. Then his eyes flashed silver. Adrian gripped the seat as though holding himself in place. The scent in the carriage changed, cedar and winter turning sharp with panic. His wolf was rising, not in anger but in confusion. Lily woke and pressed against Emily. "What is happening?" she whispered. "Silverroot," Adrian said through a measured breath. "It affects the wolf before the man." Daniel's voice came from outside, ordering the convoy toward the outpost. Adrian closed his eyes, but his control was slipping. The wooden walls trembled beneath the force of his restrained power. Emily remembered how he had stopped when she stepped away. How he had asked permission. How he had given her space when he could have claimed authority. She placed Lily behind her and moved closer. Adrian opened his eyes. "Do not," he warned gently. "I may not recognize you." Emily knelt before him. "You recognized my fear." She lifted her hand but did not touch him. "Now recognize my voice." His breathing remained uneven. Emily waited. "May I?" she asked. For one long second the king said nothing. Then he nodded. Emily placed her palm over his heart. Warmth gathered beneath her fingers, soft at first, then bright enough to spread through her arms. She felt his wolf like a storm behind a locked door, frightened by the poison and fighting everything near it. Emily did not force it back. She met it with calm. "You stopped when I was afraid," she whispered. "Now let me stay while you are." The trembling eased. Adrian's shoulders lowered. The silver light faded from his eyes, leaving them gray and exhausted. His hand closed gently around hers, not trapping it, only holding on. "Emily," he breathed. Then, barely louder than the wheels beneath them, one word escaped him. "Mate." Her wolf answered before her mind could. Adrian remembered nothing of the word he had spoken until they reached the royal outpost, but Emily remembered every quiet syllable. "Mate." It followed her through the stone corridors as healers examined him and attendants brought warm blankets for Lily. Emily remained beside the child until Daniel Hayes returned with 3 sealed ledgers recovered from the rogue camp. The pages recorded shipments from Silver Creek, payments authorized by Mason Reed, and messages bearing Vanessa's signature. The truth was no longer only Emily's word. By noon, Adrian was standing again, pale but steady, when Emily entered the council room. The ledgers lay open before him. Mason will destroy anything left in Silver Creek once he learns Cole has been arrested, she said. Adrian studied her face. My guards can bring him here. That will punish him, Emily replied. It will not free the people who are still afraid of him. She thought of Noah lying beneath thin blankets in an infirmary without medicine. She thought of every person who had lowered their eyes while she was led away. Their silence had wounded her, but fear had built that silence one command at a time. I need to go back. Adrian did not tell her it was too dangerous. He did not decide for her. Then I will go with you. The royal convoy reached Silver Creek before sunset. The pack gathered in the assembly hall beneath the same silver crest where Emily had been condemned. Mason stood on the raised platform with Vanessa beside him, both wearing expressions of practiced outrage. She returns with soldiers after betraying us, Mason announced. Emily stepped forward before Adrian could speak. His presence filled the hall, but he remained 2 paces behind her. Beside her, Lily held Daniel's hand. The medicine was never stolen by rogues, Emily said. Mason sold it to them. Vanessa laughed sharply. You expect anyone to believe in Omega who was found in their camp? Daniel placed the ledgers on the central table. Emily opened the first book and read the dates, quantities, and payments aloud. Then Lily described the wagon she had seen arriving at Blackthorn. A royal messenger confirmed that the seal found in Emily's cloak was false. Each fact removed another piece of Mason's story until nothing remained but his authority. Her word means nothing, Mason declared. She has no rank here. Adrian moved forward, but Emily lifted one hand. He stopped. She faced the pack that had once watched her disappear. You sold me because you believed silence made me weak, she said. It only taught me how clearly lies can be heard. An elderly healer rose from the front row. Emily cared for my family when the Alpha refused us medicine. A hunter stood next. Then Noah's mother. One by one, the people of Silver Creek found their voices. Mason looked around the hall and realized his title could no longer command their fear. The pack council removed the silver crest from his shoulders. Vanessa lowered her eyes as royal guards escorted them from the platform without force. Emily felt no triumph, only the slow release of a weight she had carried for years. Adrian came to stand beside her, not before her. Silver Creek will need someone it trusts, he said quietly. Emily looked at the people waiting for her to speak. Then Adrian lowered himself to one knee, and the entire hall fell silent. The Alpha King knelt before the Omega they had once considered unworthy, and no one in the hall dared breathe. Emily stared at Adrian, unable to understand why the most powerful man in the Northern Territories had lowered himself before her. He looked up, his silver-gray eyes calm and unguarded. There is something I should have told you in Blackthorn Forest, he said. When our hands touched, my wolf recognized you as my destined mate. A quiet murmur passed through the room, but Adrian did not look away from her. The bond may have chosen us, he continued, but it does not give me the right to choose for you. You owe me nothing because I found you. You owe me nothing because I protected you. Your life belongs to you, Emily Carter. Her chest tightened. All her life, others had decided where she stood, what she deserved, and how much her voice mattered. Mason had called her weak. Vanessa had called her invisible. Cole had treated her like a tool. Adrian offered her neither an order nor a crown. He offered her a choice. Why are you kneeling? Emily asked softly. Because you have spent too long beneath people who never deserved to stand above you. Lily smiled from beside Daniel. Around the hall, the people of Silver Creek watched with tears, shame, and hope on their faces. Emily looked toward Noah and his mother, then toward the healers and families who would need someone to rebuild the infirmary and restore the stolen supplies. Silver Creek needs time to heal, she said. Adrian nodded. Then the crown will provide medicine, food, and protection until the pack can stand on its own. And it will not belong to you? It will belong to its people. Emily studied him for one final moment. Then she extended her hand. "Stand beside me, Adrian. Not in front of me." He rose and placed his hand in hers. Warm light moved across their joined fingers, forming matching crescent marks on their wrists. The bond was real, but it did not feel like a chain. It felt like a door opening. Months later, Emily stood at the restored infirmary as children carried fresh supplies inside. Lily had chosen to remain with her, and Silver Creek had elected a council instead of another ruler who governed through fear. Adrian waited at the doorway, never entering without invitation. Emily smiled and reached for his hand. They had tried to make her a spark for war. Instead, she became the beginning of peace. They had believed a king would see only bait. He saw the woman who would one day stand beside him as queen.